IT enthusiasts. Welcome to another episode of My Computer Careers Get Into IT Live, where we do just that. We get into all things IT. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you for joining us at the end of your weeks. We're so happy to be here with each of you, as we always are. And we're especially happy to be here to talk about one of our favorite subjects, as mentioned in the event banner, and that's grad success, student and grad success. And we're going to dig into that today with the gentleman you see here. We're going to talk about his story a little bit. But before we get into intros and all of that, Atticus Corey, thank you so much for joining us.
Of course.
And how are things in lovely, hot Las Vegas today?
It's going to be high at 104 today, so we're cooling off a bit. I'm not exaggerating. That's the high today.
I believe it. No, I believe it. I've heard stories of, and I'm sure that they're slightly exaggerated.
But broke the record this year for 120. Of course, that was way down in the middle of Las Vegas where all the concrete was. But
I've heard slightly exaggerated stories, I'm sure, of shoes melting to the pavement.
I believe it. Yeah.
All right. Well, anyway, the less important stuff out of the way. Let's talk about you a little bit. So Atticus is currently an IT support tech on Nellis Air Force Base at their education center. But he's also a 21-year Air Force veteran and a graduate of the Cyber Warrior program. So a rich background. This is not Atticus's first day, but why don't you introduce yourself to our audience, Atticus?
Yeah, absolutely. So like you said, 21 years on the Air Force, joined in 2003, so quite a while ago. And those 21 years, I did the munitions systems career field. So those who are in the military, I basically the bullets and bombs, mostly the bombs and the missiles that went underneath the planes. So definitely not IT work. And then I've been at Nellis since 2016 and took a 1-year break, went to Korea and came back. But yeah, I've been to multiple bases. Had the pleasure of traveling half the world. Some on the Air Force's dollar, some on my dollar, because when you're in Korea, for example, it's just not too expensive to go to Thailand or something like that, or go to the Philippines.
Sure,
go somewhere tropical. But rough experience. And then in 20 years, some was good and some wasn't so great, but it all in the end led me to where I am now. So
Well, so perfect lead into the next question. Let's talk about kind of where you are now and where you've been. Tell us about your journey. What brought you to My Computer Career, if you don't mind, and sharing a little bit, about your time in the military, just what got you to the program.
For sure. It started I guess before I joined the military. I was going to college. I kind of got burnt out in college. Some things happened in my life, and I had to drop out. Yeah. But before that happened, I was actually trying to major in computer engineering. And man, the math and engineering classes were just wrecking.
No, thank you. Yeah.
But the actual computer classes that I took, I found really interesting. Taking a computer apart. And I remember, oh man, this is pushing. I don't know what code it was. I wrote a whole page of code on my whole class did, just to have like a simple box appear on the screen. You got one character wrong and it wouldn't appear. So just the intricacies, and that it demanded a high attention to detail, and that not everybody could do it. And the fact if you just missed one character, it didn't work. But if you got everything right, it did work. And it was the satisfaction behind that. I joined the military and got munitions for, because I felt the need to get out. But then when I come time to retirement, I still had that desire to work with computers. And even throughout my military career, I'd have people run LAN cables. I just noticed with other people that they're like, oh, I can't get my printer working. And I'm like, I would just come up well, what did it say? Was there a message box? And they're like, well, I don't know. I'm like, well, all right, let's try to figure this out, and unless it required, admin access, I always, not always, but most of the time was able to get it working. Of course, with restricted Air Force network, you can always, do what you want. You're not the main, you're not the administrator user, but I'd always had an interest. And so when it came to retire here on base, there was the in-person Cyber Warrior program. And so I just, I've been planning a year out before, before I retired, that's what I wanted to do. And I wanted to get in there and my lead in to like getting into the IT world.
So, it's interesting to hear that you were the de facto IT guy.
Yeah,
Because, a lot of folks that either come to us or go elsewhere for IT training are in that role. Either with friends or family or in their whatever job they're currently in. So that's something that's always good to hear. So you obviously had an interest in IT.
Mm-hmm.
What led you to enroll in the Cyber Warrior program?
Well, the simple fact that there was an in-person class offered here on base.
Okay.
But then I'd heard about it, and then people graduating from it, getting jobs and moving on. So, and then I just knew that that the in-person here on Nellis AFB was a better fit, and also you're sitting next to somebody and you can kind of bounce ideas off their head if somebody's understanding something and you're not, or vice versa. Just being able to sit there, and also having my instructor James Perrier, who actually down the hallway from me, great instructor by the way, just full of energy and a way to like just make things interesting. So that's what led me into it. The fact it was offered here on base, and then I wanted to get into the IT and just networking and administrative duties and like in the network.
Got it. So, I mean, that's an intensive course, and you obviously you earned a bunch of great certs, and I do say earned because you did in that Cyber Warrior program, but it's in a short amount of time. I mean, that's a 12-week program.
Yeah, fire hose of information.
Full-time job, right? I mean, it's every day, 8 hours a day at least. Can you talk about that experience and kind of what you took away from the CWP?
So it was a lot of information right there. I don't think the cyber program is somebody who, if you're trying to figure out if you want to get into IT, I recommend if you want to get into IT and networking and working with computers, it's for you. But if you're not sure, I'd take a hard look because it is a lot of information all at once. But yeah, I treated it like a full-time job. What was the great thing about being skill bridging, which is those who are not in the military, you still in the military, you get paid by the military, but your job is with that program, and that skill bridge program is my computer career. So when I treated it like a full-time job, and I was studying on weekends, I was going home, watching YouTube videos to try to get additional understanding, or if I was somebody having trouble, wrapping my mind around a project, or even watching a YouTube video just to, even if I understood it, just to hear it from a different perspective, so I can just more solidify understanding of how things worked. But yeah, it was. Even on weekends, I was sitting down and devote my time because I knew this is what I wanted to do, and it was almost like an all-in situation. This was it, and there was like no other. I treated it at the time that there was no other alternative. Like, this is what I was going to do, and so I totally like buckled down and grit my teeth and like this like diving into the deep end. That's gonna happen.
Yeah. And a lot of what you learned in 21 years or went through in 21 years in the military, and that dedication and drive obviously transferred pretty well into the CWP, if I'm hearing correctly.
Oh yeah. I mean, any branch of the military, if you retired at any branch, you're gonna go through some times that'll test you, both mentally, physically, emotionally. More emotionally as I look back, but yeah, and so I just took that discipline and just try to carry it forward into the Cyber Warrior program. And I was, I'm older too. I got a wife, I got a kid, so it's just, and what's nice because I guess my focus was to continue help the family. So I knew that I had other responsibilities weighing down on my shoulders. Not saying that if you're young and unmarried, you don't have responsibilities.
Yeah, of course.
But because we all do. But yeah, I knew the weight of like, I got a mortgage payment. I got a car payment. I'm gonna continue providing health insurance. So yeah, I was all in.
What certs did you earn in the program?
I got all four of them that were offered: CompTIA A+, Net Plus, Security Plus, and Cybersecurity Plus.
So that Cybersecurity Plus is what? Is that CISA?
Yeah.
That's a bear, I hear. So well done on that one.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
That's the one I had to test twice for that one.
Yeah. And a
But
lot of
everything
people
else,
do.
I'm very proud. I got on the first try, but it took some studying. It took some hard work to get there.
If it makes you feel any better, we had the chief technology evangelist from CompTIA join us a couple of times, and he joined us most recently to do a kind of a deep dive into the courses that we offer, their courses. And he said that is an advanced course, and it requires a lot of knowledge, and people do retest. That's the reality of it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So well done. You mentioned YouTube videos. How important was you utilizing those outside resources to gain knowledge and leaning on your classmates, whatever it might be? Because it was really interesting to hear you say from a different perspective, learning from a different perspective.
Right.
Is that important for you?
I'm gonna give like 99% of my credit to my instructor James. He's a great instructor, and he
Yeah.
really helped understanding. But the YouTube videos were important as well.
Yeah.
Like while watching Professor Messer mostly. There's another one called Certified Breakfast. Kind of an odd name, but the guy who dives into cybersecurity, and then also just another videos by Network Chuck, and of course there's so many out there. But yeah, I do recommend the outside resources and extracurricular activity to just kind of help solidify that knowledge, because when you're going over especially Network Plus and you going through like the CIDR and subnet netting, I'm like, oh my god, hard to wrap your mind around from just looking at it on a board. But if somebody has like a whole on YouTube video has a whole network set up, and they go into all these different screens, and they're almost like professionals on YouTube showing you different stuff, it just really helps to further the understanding. And so when you're doing your testing in that CompTIA, especially those lab type questions, you're kind of able to help, I don't know, just make a better understanding of what to do.
Sure. And by the way, we hear that frequently, and we 100% recommend it. Go learn everywhere. Go learn from every resource that you can. It makes perfect sense. Patricia, are we lagging a little bit? Are you seeing us okay?
There's a couple times where it lags, but it picks right back up. I'm not seeing any issues on my end.
We're good. All right. No sweat. Ed,
I'm hard lined into my computer. I didn't want to run off the Wi-Fi for this one, so
it's probably on this end. It just sometimes it happens and it catches right back up. I just wanted to make sure that we were still going out to the world here, or our world anyway. Ed, we see your question. We are gonna tackle that in a minute. He wants to know how you got into IT from scratch, and we'll talk about that in just a second.
Also, we did get a question very similar on Instagram that just says, what should be the process for a beginner in IT to study cybersecurity? So it's very similar to Ed's question there too, that we can tackle at the same time.
Yeah. In the process, I think, and Atticus, I'll let you hit it here, but the process for, studying, I think you talked about that a little bit, lean on the folks that are around you, but then also outside resources.
The product beginning, I guess, start with the basics, what a computer is, how it works on the inside, and then how it functions. If you're just starting to get into it, I just, start from scratch, and don't be afraid to acknowledge what you don't know, especially in this world where, I'll be honest with you, like as I further, in the military, what's kind of cool, you'll get people from all over the U.S. And I've gotten people, even only young kids, I call them kids because they're teenagers, and old enough to be their dad, that will come in and they know when it comes to their phone, they're good to go. But then I'll show them how to hey, you need to send an email to this person for the take on this, and they didn't know how to write an email or even pull up Outlook. So, and then, that's no shame to them. I just, no one had ever taught them. So you can't help what you don't know. But starting from scratch, there's so much information out there, and I'm a big fan of the YouTube Academy. I'll give a quick example, unrelated. I'm working on an old motorcycle, and I'm not a mechanic by any means, but man, I'm going to YouTube just for all sorts of stuff. So, right. And that's not the end all be all. There's Google certifications that you can, they aren't too expensive. I think there's one for it's like $50 a month. not too bad. And it starts from scratch. And so, I mean, man, nowadays with the internet, with what's available on the internet, you'd be surprised. I know it's almost too much information, but let's look for legitimate sources. If you're looking at videos, obviously the videos that have like the highest view count is probably going to be the best. And then well-known companies like Microsoft, Cisco, Google, I mean, they're a lot of those companies almost set the standard. So if they have a course that's offered that's inexpensive or free, I mean,
yeah,
by all means, go into that.
Jump in. Yeah, solid advice. I love it. Talking about kind of back to your time in the program, we talked about it, you drinking from a fire hose, 12 weeks, 8-9 hours a day, whatever it may take. It's a full-time job. Was there a point where it felt overwhelming, and did you ever consider giving up?
I don't mean to sound cliche, but no. I mean, yes, it did feel overwhelming, but it didn't deter me from. I didn't want to give up because I knew this is what I wanted to do. I was, like I said, all in, and I think it was the responsibility, the higher responsibilities I had. I hadn't received a retirement check yet. Everybody talks about getting money from the VA disability. I didn't know what that was going to be, so a lot of unknowns in the future. I think that's what drove me. The cyber warrior program, like I said before, I recommend it if you want to get an IT. If you're unsure about it, maybe not that I don't recommend it. Just really take a step back and have an honest conversation with yourself if this is what you want to do. And also talk to other people that are in the IT world to see if this is what you want to do and what they deal with on a day-to-day basis. But yeah, it was it did feel overwhelming. There's times like on a weekend where it was like Saturday night at 8 p.m. I'm sitting there and my wife and kid are watching TV, but I didn't let that deter me.
So, it's great to get to this point in your journey. I'd love to hear more about the program. I always like to hear, how folks move through the program. So, you're continuing on. Let's talk about your job search.
For sure.
You hit the graduation. You earn every bit of it. How did you then go about finding a career?
I started almost like a month, maybe a couple of weeks after I joined my computer career in the Mod Cyber Work program. So I know it takes a while, and I tell anybody it takes a while for companies to look at you, months sometimes. And I also I wanted to continue working with the military. And here in Nevada, there's a lot of things going on as far as like helping out the military contractor, civilian. So that's what I started chasing after. But it took a while. I'll be honest with you. I probably put close to like 70 applications out there. One of the restrictions is I had to stay here in Las Vegas. My family requirements dictated that, so I wasn't able to move. I did have a few job offers in like Virginia or Maryland, but I couldn't move. And unfortunately, I think my expectations were a little too high as far as pay coming out. Because again, I didn't know what my paycheck was going to look like with like the military retirement. And thank God for that. That really helps out. Yeah. But I did get a few job offers here in Las Vegas. And looking back, I should have taken it. I'll give a quick example. One was like $19 an hour for working with wireless access points with the Clark County School District. And what deterred me the most was the hours from 3 p.m. to 1 o'clock in the morning. And I had to drive my own vehicle. And so I think I got an F-150. It's not, it's not a Prius.
Right.
And it's paid for, but I didn't want. Looking back, I should have taken it because it was a contract for hire, and I think the contract for hire was like 3 or 4 months, and after that, other opportunities would. But I held out, and I should have taken it. But you can't help what you don't know.
Right.
I did work at Home Depot for about 4 or 5 months, grinding that through, and I think that kind of humbled me a little bit. Home Depot treated me very well. Just I didn't want to continue dealing with the Las Vegas populace and retail. That was eye-opening as well. But yeah, it took some grit. I think that was actually took more grit than going through the Cyber Warrior program.
Wow. What was your timeline? How long did it take?
So, I graduated the cyber working program in like I think the late January. I had 1 month left where it was what's called terminal leave. So you don't work. You're still getting paid by the military, and you're using your leave days. So I had 1 more month of pay. I landed this job. Oh shoot, about 2 months ago now. I'm looking at a calendar. So actually, it was the second week of July I came in here. So I graduated January 30th, and I got this job, early July. And I did work at a Home Depot like almost rightly after I retired.
Of course, yeah.
And but it's kind of funny story about that. Like, so actually, Home Depot uses their phones, which is an Android device that connects into everything. And then I remember somebody complained to me, like, a manager actually, he's like, yeah, everybody's complaining about the battery life on these suck. And I'm like, and I looked at him like, yeah, because it defaults to a 30-minute timeout before your screen darkens.
Yeah.
And I just told you, like, you guys turn, swipe up and then to the timeout like 1 or 2 minutes. Lord and behold, your battery life is going to last a lot longer.
De facto IT guy again. Yeah.
That's a simple solution, and then I think that's more of an observance thing.
Well, so I asked all of these questions because you graduated, you earned some great certs, and it took the better part even more than 6 months for you to find the gig where you are, and we stress that a lot.
Well, and also I'm gonna be honest, Las Vegas isn't really the known IT center.
Yeah. Okay.
And what's happening right now, and I think this is due to my geographic location, you got a lot of companies are leaving California for different reasons, mostly due to taxes and whatnot. So now you got Las Vegas that's nearby, and there's a huge influx. Jobs are growing, but so are people coming to this city particularly. So I was right there in the mix with them. And I keep going back to Home Depot, but it seemed like a majority of the people from Home Depot were from California, and they had all transferred here from another home. So that kind of showed me and the fact that I couldn't move. If you're a single person or your family's willing to move with you, it would have been different.
Sure. Right.
It would have been different. I would have been going to Austin, Texas, or that job offer, I think, over in Langley, Virginia, that would have been different had just family requirements. So a couple of factors that those factors kind of led to the job struggle, that I couldn't move, and just the influx of people coming into Las Vegas right now. And I think the influx is coming in faster than the IT world. And you got next door, you got the Silicon Valley, and people with way more experience than I do coming in, bringing that experience. And so I had to compete with that. Right.
Well, so I hear that it was a struggle, and I know when you're in it, it's a struggle, but that time frame is in line with what we're seeing.
Right. Okay.
Weeks to 8 to 9 months to find your gig. That's the reality of kind of the job market right now. And a lot of the time it's about who you know or getting lucky on a certain day for somebody who reads that resume. So, I always kind of try to emphasize,
right.
Submit those resumes. Don't stop. Don't give up. Allow yourself a little bit of grace. I mean, Atticus is sitting here. He's proof that it does work. Yeah. All right. So, let's keep it positive. Let's talk let's talk about your gig. You're on Nellis. You're working as an IT support tech. Can you give us an idea of what your responsibilities are? What are you doing?
So I'm the only IT guy for the Nellis Education Center.
Awesome.
So I have actually more computers than people here. Truthfully, only about maybe a dozen people on this floor, but I have I think maybe 100, 110, maybe 100 computers here. Yeah. And so people nowadays, when I came in the military, how you test for rank is you sit down, you get a bubble sheet, and you fill out your answers that way. It's no longer there. My biggest responsibility is a room where all the computers people will test on for professional military, and everything is online based. So my job is to make sure all those computers are up and running. Everything's got network connectivity. We got some newer computers that just are fine, and we got some ones that are aging a little bit. Then I got to make sure things are
Yeah.
You know, and I know which ones those are. And usually those are the ones you log into first and give them a couple of minutes to warm their gears up. But yeah. So my main job is just to make sure everybody's got internet connectivity. And I got two almost internets, if you say, for simplicity reasons. I got the Air Force network, which is if you're on an actual Air Force computer, and that runs off a entirely different system. And I got the commercial computers, which is almost like if you have your laptop sitting at home or your desktop sitting at home running off a commercial internet, and you don't not as many restrictions on there. And I have to make sure both sides are up and running.
So you're kind of a busy fella, and I can imagine those legacy computers are a blast to work on.
Sometimes I think when you get a legacy computer, because I'm older, a little more familiarity with those. Yeah. And then sometimes, you get something that's new and you're like, what the heck is this? And, when Windows 11 comes out and you kind of, first world complaints are like, oh, why they changed this icon? It used to be here and now it's here, So it depends on who you are and what you're looking for.
I know it well. I'm still dragging around a laptop from 2003 that I had in one of my first gigs. I still have it somewhere, and I think it still works, but it weighs about as much as this table. So if anything goes wrong, I'll send it your way. Yeah. By the way, just as an aside, my team is the team that sees, that monitors LinkedIn, and we get to see, we've seen a couple of your great posts. Your post about working at Home Depot and working way to get a gig, and then the big smile when you earned your certifications and all of those things. Love to see those, and I think it's a testament to what you've gone through to get here. But it's also great to share that kind of stuff because friends, family, employers, and potential employers see every bit of that. So I just wanted to throw that in there.
Thank you. Appreciate it. It takes some grit and perseverance. And I got a phone call for this job out of nowhere. I actually was about not to answer it because it looked like spam. But I ended up picking up the phone. So, it's just some phone call. Yeah. Sorry. Out of Indiana, and I'm really glad I took it.
Well, and did you feel like you were prepared for the gig entering into it?
Yes and no. Walking in, I was really daunted. I kind of wasn't sure what to do, and I'm the only IT guy. So, but luckily, my predecessor, who got a job elsewhere on base, he spent the week with me, just getting me spun up. And after that, now the ball's rolling. I've been here a few months. I know what to expect, and I know what my day to day. I think it's just kind of that just nervousness. I don't want to appear like know what I'm doing to the to my boss, and to be able to take care of people. So, not really a firm answer on that. I mean, I did because I didn't know what to expect. But then once the stuff started coming, getting my hands on stuff, I was just like, oh, okay, I can do this, blah blah blah. And some things, some things I got to make a phone call. Sometimes I got to make a phone call and hey, man, I'm having trouble with this. And sometimes, you come over and like, hey, this isn't working, and you look at it, and you're like, and you kind of like, okay, it's just this, and you just like, hey, I got to work it for you, but then you walk away, you're like, oh, all right, really, you didn't see that? Yeah. But you don't want to demean people at all. So you just kind of like, yeah, you just got to work in, and you walk out like, okay, you could have figured that on your own, but it's what I get paid to do, so. Worries.
Turn it on, turn it off, turn it on. Whatever you need to do. Yeah, make sure it's plugged in. Right.
Somebody here, their laptop wasn't working, and they said I can't connect to the internet. And I looked, it wasn't hard lined in, but their Wi-Fi wasn't turned on. So I went in, I turned on the Wi-Fi, and it connected. And I'm like, hey, it's working now, and I didn't say nothing. I didn't feel like it's okay. It depends on how you feel receptive are. Some people just want their stuff to work. They want to work. They don't care how you did it. And some people want to know how'd you get that work? Because I don't want you. I like to know how stuff works. And so I'll ask you, hey, how'd you get that working? I don't want to call it, not really waste my time, but I don't want to have to call you again to get this working because I want to be able to do it myself.
Yeah. And so, one of the things you were talking a little bit about when you jumped in, we hear the term from time to time on here, the phrase imposter syndrome. People have a little bit of that when they start their careers, even though they're prepared. they maybe feel like they don't belong, or there's some things that they don't know. When in reality, as they get into the gig, they're ready for it. Just like you said, they're going to ask some questions. They're going to have to use others to get through certain parts of their job. Of course, everybody does, but you got to kind of move past that. So that's one of the things that we hear from time to time.
Yeah, definitely. I'm the only IT guy here, so I don't have anybody sitting next to me. But been on this base for 8 years now, so I know plenty of people, and definitely a few of those who also graduated from the cyber work program are still here on working for Nellis, and they got my number, I got their number, and I'm definitely will shoot a text to a few people, and hey, I need some help with this. I can't figure out. I've done this, and this, and then they usually, when they're available, they'll come back with no problem with an answer.
Yeah, I mean, it's great to hear that. Did you work with the career services team?
I did.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
So career services, also to those who are on military, I really recommend hireheroesusa.org. Great. Those they'll help anybody out who has served time in the military. It's absolutely free. Also, portraitsforpatriots.com. They'll get that professional headshot done. Because I knew, it's all about presentation and how you first appear. And I use that picture off of on LinkedIn. So, but also, just like the career services for those who were, like, say, non-military affiliated, that came with my computer career.
Definitely, folks, if you're in the military, go out and utilize those that Atticus mentioned. I do support that 100%.
Mm-hmm.
Love that. All right, so why don't we put a cap on it with this question, Atticus? For that person that's on the fence about whether or not to jump into IT, what do you say?
I mean, if you're on the fence, you're gonna have to make a decision. Like, this is because once you start it, I mean, I say, if you're on the fence about it, you better start liking IT if you jump into it. But once you get into it, it's rewarding. You got to be one of those people who's willing to tinker. I've always liked tinkering with computers. I remember when I first built my first computer, and I fried the video card because I had the frequency setting from the motherboard not right for the video card, and I pulled it apart. I'm like, oh, there's a burnt spot. But of course, when I was 18 years old, that was an expensive mistake.
Right.
I made it never happened again.
Right.
So you got to be willing to take stuff apart. And I like also the networking side of what really interests me, because, like, getting cables where they need to be, making sure everything's connected. If you like, if you just like tinkering, even like getting on there and just figuring out settings if you're one of those people who grabs a phone and the first thing you like to do, maybe not the first thing, but you want to know how it works, how the settings works, how it manipulates, how one thing will manipulate the other, how another thing affects the other. Then I recommend IT. And once you get in there, once you get some experience underneath your belt, and the doors do open up.
I love it. I really appreciate the insight and everything that you added today. I know that it helps a lot of people, as we talked about before we came on. Is there anything that I missed? Anything else you want to throw out?
No, that's about it. Yeah, just the job search is going to be a job within itself, but it happens. Keep persistent. Funny story where I actually was at the dog park before I got this job, and you BS with other people at the dog park, and another guy who worked from home, and he came from California, and I told him my job woes, and he wasn't surprised at all. He's like, oh yeah, keep going. Oh, 70 applications? That's nothing. No, keep pushing more. Keep pushing more. And I was just like, and it kind of was like, it humbled me a little bit. Like, oh, okay, maybe I should not complain so much. But yeah, keep persistent. And yeah, it'll happen. Just got to consistency and keep pushing.
That is a perfect place for us to end this, my man.
Absolutely.
I appreciate your haircut. I appreciate your insight.
Looking good as well. You and I all with a little bit of salt and pepper in the beard.
It's called being old, buddy. You can say it. It's all right. I'm there. I embrace it.
No worries.
It's been great. Obviously, I hope you have a great weekend.
Oh, thank you as well.
Everybody in the audience, thank you again for showing up today. I hope you all have a great weekend. We will certainly see you here again next weekend or next week. We have a great guest that's going to join us to talk a little bit about his experiences in hiring folks, but we'll get into that a little bit later. So until then, thank you all. And Atticus, again, thank you, buddy.
Yeah,
Really
absolutely, Aaron. No problem.
And if you don't mind hanging around for just a second.
Yeah, no problem, for sure.
All right, folks. See you later.